Hello friends, my name is Ren. Welcome to my hobby room, or if you've been here before, welcome back. Today I will be working on painting some of my Mega Dungeon tiles. If you're not familiar with my Mega Dungeon project, I am building a diorama from dungeon tiles to display some of my painted miniatures, and also just as something cool to look at. This is the 6th Mega Dungeon video, so I will link the playlist in the video description. Check it out to catch up on what I've already done. Also, here's a quick note on terminology. I will use room to refer to the 12 by 12 inch dungeon section, even if it has interior walls that make up multiple rooms, and I will use tile to refer to the individual building blocks that make up the dungeon rooms. Today I will focus on some of the rooms made using the older Dwarven Forge tiles. These resin tiles have hourglass shaped slots on the floor when they're assembled. Since I got these tiles secondhand, I don't have the bow tie connectors originally intended to go in the slots and keep them together. The connectors are unnecessary because the tiles are all glued together, but I don't like how the slots look, so I'm going to fill them in. Afterward, I will have to repaint the floor, of course, but I will try to preserve the existing paint job on the walls because I think it looks really good and I want to keep it. I will use this spackling intended for filling nail holes or other small holes in the walls to fill in the slots. It's called Red Devil One-Time Lightweight Spackling. It's surprisingly lightweight. When I pick up this tub, it feels like it's empty. I use this plastic putty knife to spread the spackling into the slots. It goes in quickly, making a nice flat surface with the tile floor. Filling in the slots on the edge of the room is a bit tricky because I need to get both the top and the sides flat, but I get the hang of it with some practice. After letting the spackling dry, I come back with the sanding block and remove any of the peaks or ridges. Some Mega Dungeon rooms include either the newer Dwarven Forge plastic tiles, sections of pink XPS foam, or both. I cover the foam sections with a coat of black Mod Podge. Mixing Mod Podge with a black acrylic craft paint turns it black. You can mix the black right into the Mod Podge jar. The Mod Podge hardens into a shell to protect the soft foam, but it dries clear. The black paint covers up the pink, and it lets you easily see if you have full coverage. Black Mod Podge is an old trick many terrain makers on YouTube use nowadays, but I think the first place I saw it used was by Jeremy of Black Magic Craft. I had to apply 2 coats of black Mod Podge to fully cover some of the foam sections. Once the Mod Podge is dried, it's time to prime the unpainted sections. I will use a spray primer for most of the Mega Dungeon rooms. However, since I want to keep the existing paint job on the walls, I need to use a brush-on primer for the floors of these rooms. I'm using this gray Vallejo surface primer. It's a very light gray, almost off-white. I would prefer something a bit darker, but this is what I have available, and I will be painting over it anyway. I covered the unpainted plastic tiles and the black Mod Podge sections with primer. I did not prime the spackling since the package says it's paintable, and it has a porous surface that should take paint well when it's dried. I will focus on this one dungeon room for the rest of the video as I try to figure out the color scheme for painting the dungeon rooms. The next step is to apply a base coat of the primary floor color. I am using an acrylic craft paint from Apple Barrel in the color pewter gray for this. Make sure to cover all the areas showing primer or unpainted spackle. This ends up being pretty much the entire floor. This dungeon room includes one of the new, larger 4x6 inch dungeon tiles. This tile has an inset section of decorative floor. and I will paint this section in different colors. Using a smaller brush, I'm painting the decorative section blue. I didn't have the shade of blue I wanted, so I mixed 2 craft paint blues. I used 2 parts of the darker cobalt blue and 1 part of the lighter pool blue to get a nice medium blue color. Then I painted the border of the decorative area with antique gold craft paint. I was not worried about getting 100% coverage. If a bit of the gray base coat shows through, it gives the impression that the color on the decorative floor is weathered and partially worn off. The next step is to apply some color variation because actual stone is not a single color. The original paint job on the walls includes subtle green, red, and brown spots, and I want to replicate that on the floor as much as possible. I will use a sponge brush with a small amount of paint to achieve this. This is my first time sponge painting, so wish me luck. The sponge brushes that I'm using have a beveled tip, and that was leaving too much of a line, so I cut them to be square tipped. I started with a light tan, but decided to do the other colors first, so I changed to do the green. I'm using leaf green from Apple Barrel. While sponge painting, you have to wipe most of the paint off of the sponge, like dry brushing. Also, just barely touch the sponge to the surface. If you press too hard, you get a large blob of paint. If you get too much paint on the surface, you can just dab off the excess with a paper towel, which I had to do quite a bit while I was getting the hang of doing the sponge painting. I applied the green in patches, not over the entire floor, to provide some variety. I used terracotta from Anita's Craft Paints to get the red tones. Like the green, I applied this in patches rather than over the whole floor to provide color variation. I used Country Tan from Apple Barrel for the last layer of sponge painting. I applied this layer over the whole floor, including the areas of the red and green patches. I even used tan over the decorative section, but a bit lighter in that area. The next step is to dry brush the whole floor to highlight the details. I wanted to replicate the dry brushing on the original paint job, which is off-white with a hint of yellow, so I tried to mix a matching color. I used 2 parts of Country Tan, 1 part of Antique White, and 1 part medium yellow. I used this 1-inch flat brush to do the dry brushing, which worked okay but was not ideal. I currently don't have a good dry brush to dry brush something this large, so I'll have to get one before doing the other dungeon rooms. I did a dark wash to tone down some of the colors. The dry brush layer turned out slightly more yellow than I wanted, so this should help. I had to mix up some wash, so this is what I used. I mixed the wash with 2 parts water, 1 part nutmeg brown from Apple Barrel, 1 drop of lamp black from Americana, and 3 to 4 drops of flow improver from Reaper. I used the large 1-inch brush to apply the wash over the entire floor of the dungeon room. Then I dabbed off the excess with a paper towel. The wash did a good job of toning down the brighter colors, so I call that a success. This dungeon room is not entirely finished, but it's time to start wrapping up this video. I still need to paint 1 or 2 more doors and add them to some of the open doorways. Then I need to add some decor and pick some minis to add to this room. Overall, I like how the finished dungeon room paint job came out, but there are a few things to improve. First, the dry brush color was too yellow, so next time I will omit the yellow and just use a mix of country tan and antique white. Also, the red was too bright, so I will mix the terracotta and country tan together. I like how the decorative section came out. I think it looks fantastic. The weathering on that part looks like what I had in mind. There are a number of these larger tiles in the other dungeon rooms, so I look forward to painting more of these tiles in different colors. I would like to paint some designs on the small squares and see what that looks like. I tried something different for this video, writing out a script and recording a voiceover. Let me know if you like this type of video or if you prefer the more stream of consciousness kind of video. If you're still watching, you must have enjoyed the video. So please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Remember, hit the notification bell to get notified the next time I post a video. Thanks for watching and have a great day.